To welcome our friends, we're going to interview the Courtney Connected, but we're going to do it with some legends. And she just came in. So, all right, before we welcome in, because she's a guest tonight, you know what I mean? Like, she's a cabbie, but she's a guest. So, without any further ado, I'm your host, TJ, and of course, sitting right to my left over there is none other than Akashi Chris.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. Can't wait to talk to Courtney and the clan here.
We are also broadcasting on Mindforked as well, which is Akashi's channel, and you will see all the cabbies on Akashi's channel talk about AI at the end of next month. Sitting next to Akashi Chris is none other than the woman that we call Prime Time. Put them together for Leah Prime.
Hey everyone.
Wait, here we go.
Happy Wednesday.
There we go.
Amazing. My accolades.
All right. And just below me
Jeez,
right there. Just below there with the flowing blonde locks right there. My co-host from Boston, named after her moniker is named after the very city that she was raised in, even though she was born in Cuba. Put them together for Boston beer.
Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday to you, my friend. Hopefully we'll hear some Spanish. We got Ruthie in the chat, you know. And to Bia's left right there is a friend of ours whom we met on Twitter Spaces, because he and his co-host Amy are just absolutely brilliant. They have just the most wonderful vibe. They're actually going to meet IRL there here very shortly. And we've done 2 shows with Boogie and Amy, and we're probably at over 5 hours now for those 2 shows, with a mixture of rock and roll, UFOs, Bigfoot, paranormal, true crime. So put them together for J-Boogie Fever.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, DJ, for bringing me on. Very cool. Glad to be here.
Thank you for co-hosting. I think Debs is going to join us later. I believe Kevin is busy tonight. We were expecting Nathan, but hopefully he hasn't been abducted. So we will have to text Nathan to make sure that
he said he was getting a little bit late, but he said he was coming.
Oh,
Nathan.
There you go. Good. Good. You guys.
Breaking news. Nathan will be here. Don't run away, Chad.
Yeah. I'm very excited for you guys to meet all my cabbie friends, especially Boogie, who hasn't met the cabbies yet. This young lady that we're about to bring on is one of our cabbies, whom we're very proud of, like we are of every single one of them. And this young lady is an investigative reporter. She's a researcher. She has a master's in psychology. She's written a book, at least one. I think she's probably working on another. And when we want to know kind of the inside scoop on what's going on in the community, we will reach out to her. Whistleblowers reach out to her all the time. I don't even know all the whistleblowers that have reached out to her, but some of them who you've seen on television and even in the hearings talk to Courtney before anybody ever heard from them. So without further delay, party people, put those hands together for Courtney Connected! Can I get an amen for Courtney?
Amen.
Amen.
Hey. I'm nervous. Like, I find myself being nervous. I'm never nervous when I come into the cab, but tonight I kind of am. So I confess that up front.
I kind of am too.
This is a safe space.
Courtney, you're
This
in the
is
hot
a safe
seat.
space. It's okay. It's amongst friends. Safe space.
Yes,
That's
I
correct.
know. I'm amongst friends. So no need to worry.
Yes. So, yeah, I mean, Courtney, you are amongst friends. This is your house. It just so happens that we've put you in the guest chair. So we've kind of made it a little awkward by making you have a special entrance, instead of just being introed with everyone else. But we want you to feel special because essentially you have done an enormous amount of work, and we're able to benefit from that. This is work that you did, not that we did. So we thank you for that. And I put up on screen, let's see if I can share this with this gentleman here, with Matthew. And is that where, would you like to start with Matthew? Let me see. Is this it?
Well,
Yeah,
I think we should start with, yeah, we can start with him. Sure.
And if you would, first of all, before we get going, hello, Julie. Hello, Ruthie, Mel, everybody in the chat. Thank you very much for being here. Oh, and Debs is in the chat. Debs, you're supposed to be on screen.
Keep your eyes on the road.
I feel so
Deb.
happy that Debs, is just even in the chat to me.
I know,
be honest.
it is. It's
She's
wonderful.
a little
and
bit
Debs
like
is-
a partner in crime for me.
What can you tell us? First of all, for those of you guys who don't know, this is one of the whistleblowers. He has recently passed away. I'm going to take him off. I wanted you guys to kind of see what he looked like for those of you whom aren't familiar with him. And I can kind of zoom in here where you can see him a little bit better. But that is Matthew Sullivan right there, former U.S. Air Force major. And what can you tell us about Matthew, Court?
Well, I did not know him. I did not have the pleasure of knowing him, but I came to knowledge about his passing early to mid 2025. I was working on we covered this on another cab episode when I was in Germany, but I was working on this list of individuals who had been missing, or there were disappearances, or there were scientists who had passed away. And so I had been working on that list for a few years, and I came across this. It was more than a memo. It was a transcript that was given to me in safety. And that transcript pretty much outlined all the legacy program, ins and outs. I had found the document online by other researchers who had taken whole sections of this document and had it out there. Now, in that sphere, this was Reddit where I found this transcript or document. It was outlining this program that was very controversial. Michael Herrera had talked about it at the National Press Club in 2023. And he talked about being in Sri Lanka after the tsunami, and that he was in the forest, and he came across this octagonal type craft. There were men in black, like military style outfits, and he intercepted what they were doing out in the forest, the rainforest. And so I was piecing together pieces of this transcript with different whistleblowers' testimonies from the past years. And after the congressional panel last spring, which was in May, where we saw people from Congress, we saw Eric Davis, Chris Mellon, all talking about, essentially like different threads of disclosure. After that very important congressional panel, I got this very concerned signal message about a whistleblower. And so I responded to it. And this person had gone quiet, and basically was sending out warnings to all these different whistleblowers saying there's been this information that's come from other whistleblowers that there had been lethal force approved against people in the legacy program. So it was a very, very heavy accusation. So I picked up on it. I heard it. I started to get a hold of other people, and I had contacted a journalist friend of mine and said, do you know about this, accusation about lethal force against whistleblowers? And the journalist responded, yes, I have heard about this. So we discussed it. And I asked about this individual who we had heard about, people in the journalist world had heard about, a whistleblower who had taken his own life or had been lost recently. So my journalist friend confirmed, yes, he's connected to David Grush, he's connected to Jake Barber, and they lost a friend. So I didn't know his name, but I knew and confirmed that there was somebody who was a legacy program, alleged individual who had worked on, reverse engineered crafts, who was going to go and testify to Congress, and he had, they lost him. So that is how I learned of Matthew Sullivan, but I didn't learn his name until it came out publicly.
I'm going to pass it. I have questions, but we have people here, so I want to pass it to Akashi, Chris, and then Leah, and then Bia, and then Boogie. So go ahead, Akashi, Chris, with your first question.
Sure. So just to kind of align, because a lot of people did not see the last show, and they should, because it was so good and it really aligns to what we're talking about tonight, because we talked about all the circumstances of the dead scientist. So tell me, what are the correlations between Matthew Sullivan in the way that he, obviously, they're saying that it was suicide. So tell me a little bit about that. What were his circumstances, in case people don't know?
Well, he was supposed to go, according to insiders who knew him and knew he was going to Congress. He was supposed to go to Congress in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And so he passed away, I believe, in November, no, it was May. It was May 12th, 2024. So he was leading up to going to Congress, and he was supposed to go in November. So there's just a few months between when he passed away and when he was supposed to go to Congress. So the circumstances around it are all we know from what's come out about his report, his autopsy report, that it was an accidental overdose. That's what's been publicly released about it. But his name came up in the missing and scientists who had passed away and were deceased as one individual to be considered in a federal investigation on people who have been connected to the UFO issue. And some of the people who were missing were connected to the UFO issue, like McCaslin. So that's how it makes sense why he was included.
And some people are incapacitated and then administer drugs, and then they die, and then it kind of looks like it can confuse, the forensics. But Leah Prime, go ahead, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a really germane comment about the circumstances of his death. And I think that in considering Matthew Sullivan and sort of this larger context of these missing scientists, I'm very interested in, like, Courtney, especially like your perspective on the difference between like a healthy skepticism about this story versus like pattern recognition when it comes to these kinds of cases. Like, how are you thinking about those two things?
I think that there is definitely a place for healthy skepticism. And I think that we saw the like rising tide of all these people's names who are being thrown into this potential list for investigations, where some journalists went into those cases and found some of it was just personal tragedy. There was no conspiracy related to their passing. But I think that with regard to Matthew Sullivan, because of his proximity to people like Jake Barber and David Grush, and the pattern recognition where that comes in is that we've heard from whistleblowers about threats, intimidation, and constant harassment, surveillance. And so I think the pattern recognition comes in there. I don't know the circumstances of what Matthew Sullivan may have experienced of any of those potential threats before his passing, but the fact that his name was raised up by certain people. Now, I think there is some confusion around David Grush's testimony in Congress, because he said when I think it was Tim Burchett that asked him, do you know anybody who's been harmed, right, by any elements in the intelligence community or at all who have been working on these programs. And Grush said yes, he knew people that had been harmed. Then Bircha asked him, do you know anybody who has been potentially murdered? And that's where, Grush didn't definitively say yes. I
Right.
think there are some misconceptions about that. And when people go looking for those kind of patterns, it really does behoove any researcher to go back and look closely at what was said, and then look at the pattern and see if there's a bias there or if there is a very real threat. And that's the part of it we just don't know because we don't have all the
Right.
details. So that's how I
Yeah.
approach it.
I think that makes sense. It's very coherent. And I think there's a big difference. Like, harm is a spectrum, right? Like, harm could be, oh, somebody didn't get a promotion, to someone, face some kind of like physical calamity or some sort of like personal threat of violence. And yeah, I think that's a really smart and thoughtful way of framing things, Courtney.
Yeah, it's like what
Yeah,
Grush
so
called
I think people
administrative
try to-
terrorism. I'm sorry, go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, administrative
Right,
terrorism, which, to be clear, is not unique to the UFO subject nor the government, right? Like,
Right, true.
we can all speak to experiences and encounters with it.
But it
And I have
is like
seen
when
and
you-
kind of walked.
Go ahead, love.
Go ahead. You
No,
go.
I was just
You
going to
go.
say when
You
you get
go.
called into an office and all of a sudden everything's fine and dandy at your workplace, and as a result of David Grush saying, I want access to DOD files, and then all of a sudden either he or anyone who was allied with him in his office, all of a sudden they're demoted or they get
Yeah.
called in, and it's really weird. And you're like, wait, what's going on? But to be clear, I interviewed somebody here in Colorado, and at least Courtney knows who that is. He was fired as a contractor. He was prior government intel. He was then contract intel, and he was fired. And then his wife was government, and she was fired. And I was able to confirm that, not him, but I was able to confirm her. The last time I contacted this guy, he said, I don't think you should text me anymore because you could be in danger. So take that for what it's worth.
Yep.
And Court, please continue. I'm sorry.
I know many people who are new to the show don't know this, but Deb and I actually were working on UAP Medical Coalition on that board. And we saw what was happening with that hearing and afterwards with David Grush. And we made a decision as board members to write a press release to follow up on the accusations, that The Intercept was going to leak David's medical and mental health records. So that was one form of like retaliation that we followed up on because we felt it was a responsible thing to do. Even though we didn't have all the information in front of us at the time, we felt like it was better to err on the side of precaution and safety for a whistleblower, a statutory federal whistleblower, and stand up. So what I've seen come from that specific incident and multiple reports about Ken Klippenstein and how he got his information is you can kind of see the way that administrative terrorism plays out, right? Ken Klippenstein was given David Grush's addresses at different locations in Virginia where he lived so that the sheriff's office police records could be requested. So somebody gave him a hand and helped him, and he said, I can't reveal my sources or whatever, but you can just see the way they operate in order to do a smear or whatever. Now, recently, the FOIAs that John Greenwald did came out about David Grush's whole administrative file, and I've read all of them. And, you can just see that there's always this constant other side, speaking to the facts of what happened. And their claim is, in their reporting, and I'm speaking specifically about somebody who's trying to tear apart David Grush's security clearance. When you read through all of it, you can understand why they're taking the position they are, but it doesn't take away from the fact that the ICIG said there was an urgent concern that was ruled upon. And so we just don't have all the facts, but I do think it behooves us, like you're saying, the germane part, to go into fine detail and look at all of it. Don't just assume what you think you know.
You can't operate in the business of intel of the government. Oh, I hate to say the government, the Department of War, which is now called the Department of War for those who refer to the DoD. You can't operate in that ecosystem without a clearance. When they took David Grush's clearance away, they deprived him of the ability to earn. The fact that Congressman, remind me of his name, Burleson, hired him is a blessing to David Grush probably and his wife, because once they take away your clearance, it's like
you're cooked.
Neutering somebody that wants to procreate. You know, that's what it is. So I hate to use those terms.
DJ, a bard as ever.
I'm sorry. I derailed this. Boston Bia, go ahead.
It's hard to come back after that one. Jeez.
Rescue me.
Whatchamacallit. So I was wondering if anybody has ever spoken to the family. Like, were they suspicious of the circumstances around his death?
I think that would be coming from people like David Grush or Jake Barber if they were going to speak about it. Now, like I said, I found out about it through a journalist who confirmed for me, yes, they lost somebody. I haven't seen commentary from the family yet, but I would suspect, or I would hope, that those whistleblowers are in contact with them, because in Sleeping Dog, which I just saw yesterday, which is Jeremy Corbell's new documentary. It's not his, it's a different director that produced it, but he talks about, he doesn't name Matthew Sullivan, but he talks about him and that he was supposed to go to Congress and testify to back engineered craft, that he was a firsthand witness to it. And he also says that, you know, he's passed away. And I'm not exactly sure when the footage was done, but Jeremy Corbell is basically talking about this. Must have been, you know, at least a year ago. So they've had an opportunity to. I think it's a delicate issue why families don't. I don't assume that they will. But I think the fact that his name went into the list of missing or deceased scientists as somebody who should be considered is important enough on its own merit. But as we've seen with other people like Amy Eskridge, there's a whole story behind that. And I'm sure with Matthew's history, it's not a black and white thing. So I don't know. I haven't talked with the family, and I didn't even know it was Matthew Sullivan who was the person that they lost up until a couple months ago. And then I finally closed that loop in terms of who it was.
And real quickly, since Court is talking about, let's see if we can real quick just get everybody up to speed on who this documentary, for those of you who are here who are our true crime fans, and we appreciate you being here. Let me just share this really quickly, and then we'll get back to business. Sorry, I didn't have this queued up until now, but there it is. This is Jeremy Corbell. And
you're all about to hear a very relevant interview as it pertains to UFO and UAP disclosure, government secrecy, and the growing demand for more protections or better protections against UAP and UFO whistleblowers. So I interviewed.
Well, I just recently did.
There you go. Just wanted to.
Frozen. It freezes when he goes to the chair.
Oh, did it do that? Okay.
Yeah.
I may end up having to leave and restart if we need to share other commentary. But let me get J-Boogie in there, and then I've got my questions and so forth. And we're also, for those in the audience, you heard Courtney talk about Jake Barber, and Jake Barber is probably one of the most mysterious and intriguing front-facing figures that we've seen in the community for a long time. From his background in special operations is a construct that I've never heard of before, is unique to him, even if he's not the only one. He's the only one I've heard of. And then what he did for the government, retrieving downed craft, and the fact that Courtney believes that his name may in fact not even be Jake Barber. But so with that as a backdrop, Boogie, what question do you have?
Apologize for the noise in the background. The wife's using the hair dryer. Sure
it's
beats a
gotta go.
lawnmower, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't really have so much a question as a statement. I mean, well, I guess so. Wasn't Sullivan one of Grush's key witnesses in a UFO? He was like a firsthand witness, if I'm not correct. And then it was 2 weeks before he gets in front of Congress that he, something happens to him. So I find it odd that these it seems like the higher up you go, the more dangerous things get. Am I right? So I don't know what's going on with these scientists. I just find it odd that he was 2 weeks before Congress.
Are you talking about McCaslin, that they had called McCaslin twice and he considered him a hostile witness? Or
No, I was talking
referencing
about Matthew Sullivan. Yeah. It was right. It was,
I hadn't
wasn't
heard
it
that
like 2 weeks before he was
I
getting ready
hadn't
to
heard that it was
testify?
2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it
No,
was.
that's-
He passed away in May. Is
Yeah.
that
May
correct, Leah?
12th. Yeah, May 12th, 2024.
2024, right?
So I
Okay.
mean, it like 2 years ago yesterday.
Yeah.
And it does sound like he was, I don't know if it's exactly 2 weeks, but that it was imminent that he would be interviewed by Congress. So I think probably by like early June they were expecting him to speak.
Because that might have been the second
Okay.
one. That was it. The first one with Grush and and the
Yes.
2 fighter pilots. Was that the first?
Yes.
Okay, it was
The
24
first
maybe?
hearing was in 2023 with Grush. Then there was another hearing with the Immaculate Conception
Yes.
constellation. Sorry, I always say conception.
Me.
The Immaculate Constellation.
All right, we know the
where
Catholics on
Michael
the stream.
Schellenberger-
Very fitting. Very fitting.
Other people call it Immaculate Deception. I mean, whatever your association
Float your
is.
boat.
And that was Michael Schellenberger. And who else was there? Was
Lou
that
Elizondo, Nick Gold.
Nick
yeah,
Gold.
Yeah, it was
DJ, you're
one.
always right on it, man. I love it.
Yeah.
And then there was the
Not
third
really.
one
These
with
guys-
Dylan
Nah, but you
Borland and
know.
Jeff Nutricelli.
Yep. Jeff Nusatelli. That's right. Yeah. He talked about the Vandenberg incidents, which there was even more incidents than the one that he witnessed, that we found out about at Vandenberg. So yeah, that was the Vandenberg one is really freaky. Really freaky.
I just
So-
find it odd that these guys are, these scientists are just, what's happening? It seems like I said, the more
there
you
was
know,
a
it's
change.
dangerous to be working in that field. It seems like.
There was a change, and Chris Mellon talked about this, where they only wanted firsthand witnesses. Many people who have been following this issue probably know that it went from, Nancy Mace saying we want to see anybody who has ever seen anything, step forward, and then it became we only want firsthand people to testify. And so in that change and transition, that's where Matthew Sullivan would have fallen. He would have been somebody
Yeah.
with firsthand knowledge coming forward after they made that change in who gets to come forward. So DJ, don't let me forget to talk about that, what you brought up about this mechanism for different types of operations in Jake Barber, because that directly relates to what I was talking about with the transcript. You break it down of what the way you saw it, and then I will hopefully make that transcript make sense to what you're pointing out.
Yeah, we're going to go right to Jake Barber after we speak about Matthew. And I have one final question about Matthew, and then I'll present Jake Barber. But before I do that, if everybody will just indulge me for a second here, we are doing a cab fundraiser for medium Carolyn Clapper. And the reason that we're doing this is because she charges for, if you don't have a loved one who has been missing or killed that you're trying to discover, she does charge a fee, and it's $888. We are already over $400. So even if you have $2, $3, $5, we have a month to raise this money. So our PayPal is at Calling All Beings if you would like to donate to this effort. The reason that we're doing this is because we don't know what happened to Officer John O'Keefe, and we viewed the Teresa Jones case whereby Teresa Jones' daughters in Louisiana, rural Louisiana, one night called Carolyn Clapper, who was able to connect with a then not known to be deceased Teresa Jones. And and Carolyn was able to tell them exactly where to find Teresa the next morning. So she gave them directions from Teresa's trailer down the road, and she was within 500 yards of the house. But basically, they traveled down roads to get to her. So this is the reason why you are so loved, Akashi Chris, like they're saying there. And so this is the reason why we're fundraising. So if you would like to donate anything, we don't care if it's $2, $3. We would really appreciate it. We're over half the way there. Thank you, Kim. We did receive your donation the other night. Thank you very much for doing that. I really appreciate that. Okay. So there we are. Carolyn Clapper. No clap. Okay.
Oh no, she's
Tough
good.
luck.
She's good. I looked at the what you
The
were
video?
talking about. Yeah, the video with her and the daughters, and wow. And I'm a big skeptic. I got to see it to believe it. This had me convinced. I'm like, because she walked them through it. I mean, it's pretty incredible. So I'm really looking forward to getting her.
Oh, she said, oh yeah, they were at the convenience store. And then from there, they put her in the back of the vehicle and they went here, and then they went behind this house, and you're going to see a big log. You're going to feel sick when you see this big log, and then you're going to see the body in the creek. And there it was. And she saw it through the security cameras too. Remember? It's really weird.
That's
yeah.
crazy.
That you can see through the ring cameras and stuff, the security cameras. I was at the convenience store.
Yeah, the cameras at the convenience store. Remember, she was talking about she was able to see through the camera. The spirit, I guess, put her in the view where she could see through the camera.
I can tell you guys, Carolyn Clapper called me and told me something about my life that happened 26 years ago that is not on social media. That was long before I ever got a smartphone. And so she can do, and the family of Teresa Jones was skeptical, except for the youngest daughter. The eldest daughter wanted no part of this. They're extremely religious, and she had to break down and go, man, she was right. She did it. She
spot
tried,
on.
and she was spot on. So she can and if she can communicate with Officer John O'Keefe, we can find out how he was killed, and that's why we're doing this fundraiser. Okay.
Hey, DJ.
Yes, ma'am.
D-Mart, yeah.
Yeah, D-Mart is asking. He doesn't have PayPal. Is there any
It's a she.
alternatives?
D-Mat.
Yes.
D-Mat, we do have Cash App, which is also at Calling All Beings. Let me see here. So, I know that we have a Cash App. I just have to find it, and I'll put it in our chat. We don't advertise that stuff very. Oh, here it is. This is our Cash App right here, $ Calling All Beings on Cash App. If you'd like to use that. Super chat, obviously they're going to YouTube will take 30% of it if you decide to super chat, but it's better than nothing. So thank you very much for doing this. I wholly believe with what Carolyn has already told me, that she's communicating with John O'Keefe, that she's communicated with somebody deceased in my family, and that she obviously did it to the Jones family to where they could find the mom the next morning. So, and they'd never talked to Carolyn in their lives. So there you go. $ Calling All Beings for Cash App. Okay. Let me get back to Matthew Sullivan, mate. And what I was going to ask you, Courtney, is what was he doing? Was he a scientist that he was involved in? Oh, look who's here. Was he involved in reverse engineering in some way? Hold on, before we do that.
Yeah, that was.
The co-creator
Nathan,
who
good to see you, man.
designed Calling All Beings and came up with that damn catchy name. Money Nathan, my brother.
What is up? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but great to see all of you. How's it going? What's going on?
Hi. Courtney was just telling us how what actually Matthew Sullivan's job was that would have made him a target.
Awesome.
Well, David Grush has said publicly that this was a friend of his and that it was common knowledge that he worked on these programs, and that not only had people, specifically, we've learned now that Matthew Sullivan is the person who passed away, but he also said that people disappeared on the job. People that were working on these programs just vanished. So there's no more information, or nobody has elaborated on, what David Grush has said about people disappearing on the job. But he also testified about that in Congress as well, and said people have just been disappeared who worked on these programs. And so it was highly concerning to him. And so when he's talked about or made reference to Matthew Sullivan, he's basically said it was common knowledge that he worked on the program. So in certain circles. So that's what's been said. It's mainly from David Grush.
So we don't know exactly what his role was, but he had a role, and it's obvious that someone thought that what he knew could be threatening, and that he was going to utilize the whistleblower protections that were offered by Congress, and that is what they fear the most, because to date, we haven't had someone that's had kind of like hands-on contact, save for Bob Lazar, that has come out and done that and spoken in that sort of a forum that demands respect and demands people to take it seriously. So
the only other source I know of who was on the record about back engineering was the source for Leslie Keene's debrief article. She had Carl Nell as one source backing Grush and saying Grush was who he said he was. And then she had another source who was Jonathan Gray. And Jonathan Gray was NASIC. And he said that David Grush was who he was, but he was specifically the source who said he worked on back engineered craft. So as I see it, there's Matthew Sullivan is one source, and then Jonathan Gray was a second source. So when Jeremy Corbell has talked about two sources that were supposedly going to go to Congress, and one of them was deceased, we know that Matthew Sullivan was one of them. I'm not sure if Jonathan Gray was the other source who was going to go and report to Congress or not. There are still some unknowns.
This really is you know what we're going to do now that we have the middle, we're going to put Courtney in the middle. We're going to do our Brady Bunch thing. There we go. All right. We're going to move on to Jake Barber now, because the thing with Matthew Sullivan is it really is a mystery. We don't know a lot about him. And as Julie was saying right here, we may never know what his exact role was now, but obviously somebody feared what he might say. So do you want me to set the table on Jake Barber, Courtney, and then you take off from there?
Well, I'm not an expert, so you would know more about that chain of command or the processes that happen for people in the Air Force who are going in certain departments. So you would be better to set the table on that. I can just comment on the transcript and what was written about by Barber.
Okay, then what I want to tell the audience right now is I've never heard of anybody who has gone into special operations under this construct of Jake Barber. And if I have to show what he looks like for those of you who don't know, actually, I think I have a photo of him, so I can present that real quick. Just give me 1 second, because I know I put him up on our in Canva. So of course now I can't find it now that I might have screenshotted it actually. But he is in this, he is in our artwork right here. So you can see that is he in the middle right next to Courtney. That's Matthew Sullivan, not in service, a little older there. And that is Jake Barber. Jake Barber, also from the jiu-jitsu community. He is one of the Gracie brothers, Northern California jiu-jitsu professors. He's named on their website, but we're going to get into the naming convention with Courtney because we're not too sure that's his real name. Anyway, long story short, he goes to the Air Force and he tells them that he wants to be a combat controller, which at the time was one of, let's say, 3 special operation positions. You could be a ground operator and work with soft teams, work with SEALs, work with Delta. You could be a JTAC, a combat controller, if you will. And when he was recruited, they told him they wanted him to go through a different path than what everyone else went to. So he went through, I believe, the basic combat controller course, which I believe is at Fort Bragg. And then when he graduated from that, he split off from the rest of the crew and he started doing all these different kind of 3-letter agency type trainings. One of them included helicopter pilot. There was shooting. There was other different courses that were 3-letter agency related. And he ended up becoming, he basically had a fake job. He got trained also as an aircraft maintainer. And look who's here. Folks, you thought we were done, but we're not. So party people, put your hands together for Debs, a study of UAPs.
I am literally in a car right now. I decided I'll just keep being in my car.
Deb, with Debs, she's full of surprises. She really is. Always
No
has been.
driving and streaming. No,
no.
driving and streaming.
Oh no, I'm parked. I'm parked. No worries.
Okay.
I'm parked. I'm just like, if I go in, it's chaos. So I'll just stay here so I could talk to you guys about this. Obviously, I've been listening the whole time.
Awesome.
And
Comments?
I'm happy to add something that's extremely important to those who are not familiar with this topic.
Please.
So historically, those documents should be including a very important subject line, and that would be Project Moondust. So right now we're taking a look at more recent reconnaissance, but there's been historical records about this reconnaissance for some time. And now that those government documents are on that lovely site, if anyone wants to look at that history, please look for Project Moondust.
And tell them what Project Moondust is about.
It is literally a group that was assigned to go look for UFOs.
Okay. And so a crash retrieval.
Military.
No?
Yeah.
Okay. Crash retrieval group. Is that what we're talking
yeah,
about?
I would say yes to crash retrieval, but yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's from the Cold War.
It was also intended to be, I think it was U.S. Air Force. It tended to also be looking for satellites that fell from space, not just UFOs. But it is one of the more important aspects of the reconnaissance conversation because it's been going on for a long time.
Project Moondust, baby, ain't playing no games. All right. All right, we're going back to Jake Barber now. So to fast forward, Jake Barber ends up becoming a contractor to the government who worked on the Nellis Range, and he was retrieving both experimental aircraft that had gone down, as you could imagine, when you test certain types of craft, and you're inside a place like Area 51 or the Nellis Range, they might fail, and you might have to have someone go out and pick them up because you don't want anybody's eyes on that technology, whether we've created it or whether it's created by non-human intelligence. You don't want anybody to have eyes on. Did you have something, Leah? Anybody? No?
I had an ancillary personal story about this. It's not exactly related. And I bring it up. So a handful of years ago now, about 7 years ago, I was taking a backpacking trip and was driving into Death Valley in California quite late at night, probably around 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock at night in August of 2019. And at the time, if anyone's driven into Death Valley, there's basically like a 2-lane road. that kind of snakes down into the valley. And you can kind of drive the perimeter of the valley and then come out the other side. I was planning on camping at this mining ghost town named Ballarat, which is right outside the confines of the park, but you have to go into and through the park to get to it. Anyway, I bring this up that there had been a crash of some kind of either test plane or something in that area when I was driving through there. And it's documented. You can read the news articles about it and stuff. But it was one of the strangest and otherworldly experiences of my life, driving in at like midnight with all these dudes in like bunny suits directing traffic, because there was all this like broken fuselage and like stuff from this crash like all over the place in Death Valley. And I was like, whoa, this is like right out of a science fiction movie. And as soon as I had internet access again the next day, when I was on my way out of Ballarat and getting to, I want to say the China Lake facility is like right there, and it may have been something from there.
Do you know how great you are, Leah? I just pulled it up because, and you're right.
Yeah. No, I'm totally not making it up, but it's the same kind of thing. They had dudes out there in like little jumpsuits. It was like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, like cleaning up all the fuselage and directing traffic and keeping everybody away from anything, any place in Death Valley that could have been hit or part of this crash site.
And this is where Leah is talking about, everybody. So right here, you can see Death Valley is where the red dot is. And if you go just south, that is the entire China Lake range before there. I've actually done aircraft testing out there. So yes, very, very close. Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, I was just kind of validating your story. It was a very strange experience. I don't think it was anything anomalous other than it was just a really weird thing to come across in the middle of the night. And I was by myself, so it was like extra spooky.
This is what scares me. Leah, do you realize that Missing 411 stories start exactly like I was driving to go camping in Death Valley? Tell me you guys haven't seen a David Paulides.
Oh, yeah. I've seen them all.
Yeah. You're playing with destiny there, girl. You're playing with bad destiny.
Right. I drove out to Area 51.
You and I've listened to enough of these. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just saying I had a buddy come in from Britain and he wanted to go out to, I guess it's big over there. So he's like, you got to take me out there. And so we get out there. We get to the sign and it's at night and it's like 10:30 at night or something like that. It was real dark. And we get just right up to the sign. And we heard something out in the distance, or someone, say, that's far enough. And you never saw three people DD to a car so fast. I did a swan dive into the driver's seat. We were out of there. I thought, because this was back in the early 2000s. And, so I was scared of the camo dudes, so we were like, that's a long drive too on that dirt road.
And Boogie, I know you've heard enough stories from guys trying to go down to Rachel and penetrate the range, and they get a not so nice reception from security at
Whacking Hut or whatever.
Yeah, Whacking Hut is security out there, but they'll bring in Lincoln County sheriffs to deal with you.
Yeah, they don't mess around.
Right. And they don't mess around because they're trying to send a message, because when this whole thing blew up with Area 51, it all of a sudden everyone and their brother was going out there. So they had to get real strict, So they are, if you even think about going past that sign, you're going to get hooked up.
And so, winding this back to Jake Barber. So ironically, he was even on some presidential support missions as a helicopter mechanic, as a guise of an aircraft mechanic, but he actually was security, pulling security for those missions. And he became an accomplished helicopter pilot himself. Deb, I'm going to tell Debs, she's going to have to connect to Wi-Fi, because StreamYard, unless you got like straight up 5G, it often fails. But anyway, so Jake Barber ends up starting his own company, becoming a government contractor, and he's retrieving craft from the range. I can go into what happened about those two Pelican cases that they went to retrieve in NoCal, but right now I don't want to do that. I want to let Courtney and the rest of the crew talk about what happened with the 8 Con and the egg-shaped craft that Jake Barber went to pick up out on the range. Take it away, Courtney, and then Cabbies, we'll start with Nathan after you speak and go around the room.
Okay, so I don't know if everybody knows, but my area of study is really psychic phenomenon, anomalous phenomenon, transformational experiences, extraordinary experiences. It's not necessarily craft or the military backgrounds of people. So Jake Barber came on my radar because he was talking about the GATE program, gifted.
Uh-oh.
And talented.
Okay. We're losing Courtney
How,
now.
how about now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we've got you
Yeah,
back.
much better.
Debs, you're probably going to have to connect to Wi-Fi. So you might as well go in the house,
Yeah.
get in a quiet room, let everybody in the house yell Debs and give you a hug, and then connect to Wi-Fi because it's probably not going to work. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember that GATE program.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead, Court. Please continue. We lost
We
Courtney.
can't hear Courtney now.
So Psionics, Nathan, take it away with Jake Barber's company, the Psionics that he hired. He basically has a team of special operators that would go pick up these craft, but then he ends up hiring a group of Psionics that can call in UFOs. So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think we hadn't heard from someone like Jake Barber who came forward publicly for quite a long time, at least in the very public fashion that he did. And his group, he describes that he was initially kind of red teaming people who were coming forward to whistleblow on these programs. So because he was already doing some of this work and retrieving some of these craft. And I guess he had some guys that were monitoring other folks that were coming forward. And he talks about he went to one of Stephen Greer's press club events and was there just sort of evaluating people that were coming forward. And at some point along the line, he decided to become more public and talk about his experiences inside the program. But he did form a company. I don't know that he formed it himself, but he formed a company with some other folks called Skywatcher, where they were using various methods to try to call down or observe UAP through different methods. So they had a mechanical method that they used, which they dubbed the dog whistle. They never revealed exactly how that worked, but it was some type of proprietary technology, and that they claimed that when they used it, they had a near 100% success rate of those UAP appearing in the sky above the range that they were observing. They also, seemed to make an effort to classify UAP in a pretty clear taxonomy that I think was useful, at least for their observational purposes. And all of us know there's been attempts throughout the years to create a taxonomy of UAP, but they famously had kind of like the jellyfish and the eight
Con.
a lot of different types.
Yep.
The Tic Tac and things like that. Mm-hmm. And but going back to what you're talking about with his experience with the 8-gon and the egg-shaped craft. So when the community, I guess, first heard of Jake Barber, it was through Ross Coulthart kind of breaking the story, and it was about they had some footage of a helicopter with a retrieval tether. Maybe there's a more technical term for that, DJ. I don't know.
Say again.
Like the harness that they would use.
It's a sling. It's really the most low tech thing you could have. I don't even know if he had a hoist. I think he just had a sling.
Yeah. So a couple things about that, which were interesting, and I'm sure you can find the video, folks, if you're interested in looking at it on YouTube. Mm-hmm. But it's a kind of a night vision shot from top down to the ground. You can see the tether attached to a very white egg-shaped object that's in a sling that is rising off of the ground. And obviously, if you have a sling around an object, that means you don't just have a helicopter pilot. You have a ground team that is affixing the sling to the object. So there are folks on the ground that are close to these objects, interacting with them. So that was some footage that was shared. But then he shared a personal anecdote about a retrieval of an object that he called the 8-gon, which was an 8-sided craft, sort of I guess I thought of this, maybe others have a different conception of it. I thought of it as a classic saucer, but more angular, so with 8 sides to it rather than being completely circular. So he's retrieving this 8-gon craft from the ground, and he explains that he had a deep kind of connection to the craft in a way. And I think it's the way he describes it, it sounds like he's still wrestling with how to articulate the experience, whether he thinks it truly emanated from this object, or he just had one of those moments where he felt connected to this thing for some unknown reason, but as if it was speaking to him. And he had basically a transformational experience. It sounded so intense that he even had trouble for a time, I think, kind of like piloting the helicopter. So interesting story. And Skywatcher made a lot of claims to kind of be pretty transparent with their research and keep the community updated on what they might obtain. But the last I heard of it, and I'm sure others have better information than I do, that they kind of went private with their technology, and they work with the government, and they're not publishing stuff anymore publicly, as far as I can tell.
They stopped releasing videos. I can show a little bit here. Do you guys think we should share bits so people get some context?
Sure.
Cool, here we go.
There's 2 objects that I'm here to talk about. One was the egg. The other is what we called an 8-gon. The 8-gon was essentially a flying disc with what looked like 8 delineated sections when looking down. And I can tell you what it looked like from looking down, because that's primarily how I saw it, because I'm a helicopter pilot. We did recoveries with the 8-gons. There was more than one that made its way to the ground on this particular operation.
Simply seeing a non-human craft up close would be an intense experience in itself. But Barber says as he prepared to transport that so-called 8-gon from the pickup site to the drop site, something even more intense happened to him that would change his life forever.
This is one of the most profound experiences I've ever had in my life I'm about to share with you, so bear with me. So as I get closer to this pick site, I start feeling odd. I start feeling extremely emotional. And the closer I get, the more the emotion starts to overwhelm me. I feel this intense hybrid of sadness and happiness and beauty and song. And it was very disruptive to me, because I had a very practical responsibility at the time to operate a helicopter in the mountains at night. And I began wondering what was wrong with me. It was late. I'm like, am I distressed? Am I tired? And I don't know. But as I came over this object for the pick, there was this overwhelming sense of emotion.
Is it your feeling? Are you suddenly having a mental breakdown on the job?
No, I felt like something connected with me. I felt like something had tuned in to me and my soul and was providing me some sense of guidance on what to do and how profound what I was doing was. And it was so overwhelming that I began to cry. And then I'm confused as to why I'm crying at the same time. And then do I abort the mission? So I just did my best to focus on my particular cues when doing this type of work. And I got the load hooked up and I began flying away. And once it was just me and that object in between the pick and the drop site, there's about 20 miles in between, I felt like something was inside of me. I felt like I was possessed by the most beautiful spirit I'd ever been possessed by. And
was it loving?
It was loving. But there was a sense of sadness at the same time. And
had you ever had an experience like this before?
No.
It's heavy.
No, it was a very feminine energy, I'll tell you that. It felt like the spirit of God, but not in any masculine sense. And it wasn't like a soul, it was like a frequency that I was connected with. And whatever that force was since that night, it has stayed with me. And as crazy as this sounds, it's what's guiding me now. And it's what's providing protection for me.
It's changed your life.
It's changed my life.
Wait a second. Humans bonding psychically and emotionally with non-human intelligence? Yes, Jake Barber says that's exactly what happened to him. And he's not the only one. And he says the government knows all about it.
There is a psychic component to the research and development of the UAP program. So there was another object.
We'll stop.
With a sales pitch like that, I'd want to whistle too.
That's heavy. It's heavy.
So what News Nation did some due diligence. They hired former Delta Force Lieutenant Colonel John Blitch. He organizes a fishing trip. He takes Jake Barber and his ground team out on a fishing trip. And basically his mission is tell us if this guy's a legit special operator, because anybody could call Ross Coulthart and say, hey, I'm a former special operator and I've done this and I've done that. Well, how do you know if they're telling the truth? The only way you know is if you know someone who speaks the lingo and they know. And that's exactly what happened. Colonel Blitch, who used to teach at the Air Force Academy, former Delta Force operator, he verified that, yeah, these guys are legit. So, Courtney, we don't have to tell the story right now about I mean, this guy's doing some like James Bond type stuff with retrieving the 2 Pelican cases. Do you want to talk about that? Do you remember that narrative, or you want me to tell about that?
Well, it's kind of where things turn for him. And, when you go and look at all the information that's online on Reddit through these other people who are talking to him about a story, and he's putting it out in these various ways, you see there is like a turning point for him. He talks about Team Black and Team Blue. And the difference between being on Team Black and being on Team Blue, as he's explained it through readings and other things, is that he talks about the blue team being like forward-facing government employees who are doing secretive work that's all sanctioned. And then below that, there's the black team. And the black team, some of them, like himself, think they're on the blue team, which means government sanctioned work, doing secretive or classified stuff, and it's all being approved. He has this turning point with these 2 different laptops that he sent on a mission to get, where he realizes he might not be on Team Blue. So in Ross Coulthart's reporting, he talks with Jake Barber about that mission, and they go to this high altitude area to get these 2 laptops, and then he retrieves one of them. It gets hot where there's somebody else going to find them at the same time, and then he goes to like turn the one in, and he starts to feel like he's not exactly sure who he's working for or what that mission is about, or if it was a sanctioned mission. So when he goes to testify, he goes to Congress and he goes to SISI, which is the Senate Select Intelligence Committee, to report his understanding of his work, his contractor, his status, and that he wasn't really on the blue team. He was on the black team the whole time. He approaches the Senate Select Intelligence Committee and he basically says to Marco Rubio's staffer, who is Estridge, he says, these other people want to come out of this black program and I want to bring them out safely into Congress. But he basically says the way that Lou Elizondo has done it and the way that David Grush has done it, this is not tenable for these individuals because of what happened to them. He's basically saying this is a cautionary tale. Meanwhile, he finds out that John Estridge is facing certain types of intimidation and harassment himself. And he starts to tell Jake Barber about this. And that's why Jake Barber backs away from going to Congress, because he realizes that there is a CIA potential involvement and it's not safe for him to come forward. So up till now, he's run Skywatcher. He's talked about psionics. He's done psionic summoning. And my only relationship to Skywatcher has been through one of the investigations I did, and that was Jordan Jozak. Jordan Jozak was somebody who came to me because he felt he was in a childhood psi program, and he asked me to help him investigate it, which I did, because he wanted to potentially take a legal route. So I became aware of Skywatchers recruiting certain people because they heard Jordan's interview on X, and then he was recruited into Skywatcher to be a psionic for them. So I kind of was midstream with Skywatcher, watching Jordan's progression into their organization.
And for just a little bit more context, apparently they had GPS locations of these 2 Pelican cases and laptops, these tough books, during the winter when they were under feet of snow, and they had to wait
Right.
Until the snow melted to go and retrieve these. And what, I don't want to call it a firefight, but they had an encounter with an opposing force where both
Yes.
forces were armed, and that caused Jake, and it might have even been Fred, who's his combat controller, to go to the guy who hired them for this contract and say, WTF is going on? You sent us down there to get that, and you didn't tell us that there was going to be an opposing force, an armed force that was potentially also looking for this material. So I think ultimately the interesting thing is we don't know who the black was, the blue and the black in this. We don't know who the other force was. Jake, the guy who hired Jake, they went there to try to like intimidate the guy. And the guy basically was a little scared, but he's like, I'm not telling you anything, take it or leave it. We hired you, and it is what it is, kind of thing. So we really don't know what happened, but it's very interesting, the kind of stuff that's going on here. I want to go all the way around the table with anyone's questions for Courtney, because Courtney suggested to us that maybe Jake Barber's name isn't Jake Barber, but let's start with Nathan and we'll go to Kashi and go all the way around the horn.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll start with one of the more obvious questions. But why do you think that Jake Barber has become less public? Why do you think that I mean, I know there was the whole, I forget the guy's name, the technologist on the team that he,
James Fowler.
Thank you, James Fowler. So I know he had maybe some contracts and things like that, and that kind of broke things up a little bit. So why have we not heard more from Jake Barber? Do you think we will hear more from Jake Barber at some point?
There were like 3 months last summer when everybody kind of went quiet, and they were doing a strategic reorg, right? And James Fowler had like surreptitiously left, and I think that he may have taken a lot of that raw data with him. And so if that is the case, and he took the data with him from his Skywatcher studies, then I think that could be one of the reasons why Jake Barber hasn't been as public, or why they haven't produced the final, project that they wanted to unveil. I have heard that Gary Nolan will be writing a paper, so that could be, what we get in the absence of Jake being more public. Now, he was at Seoul last year, speaking very publicly about the neuromeditative processes that they developed. So I know he has been active behind the scenes. He just hasn't been more public. And I believe that's because Fowler left and started a new contract with the DoD. And so some of that data might have gone with him. That's my guess. I don't know.
And who is next? Akashi, Chris.
Trying to find the mute button. I found it. So this is where my head turns into a pretzel, Courtney, because the more that we listen to from the last show, we got all the scientists, right? We got the things that happened to Grush when he tried to speak up, the way that he was attacked, the things, then Barber, the egg, the laughter, the mocking, remember all that happened. Then you have Sullivan. And I mean, this is where it's like, I don't know, my head turns into a pretzel, because how do you accept that along with the word that disclosure is coming? Because then it's going to have to be such a skimmed down version of disclosure that it might have been disclosure at one point, and now it's like disclosure light. It can't, because they're hiding something so big. And it's like, I start thinking, it's like, maybe they're conditioning us for sure. They're peppering us with info, so we don't really feel anything much. I mean, I'm in a state of lowered expectations because I'm tired of getting excited about something that never happens. And the fact that why get rid of people? Why go so far? And we know these things have happened. Von Braun keeps popping up in my head going, the last card. How do you compartmentalize all this? Because I'm just struggling. And I don't even know if that's a question or a rant. I don't even know anymore. You see, I'm confused, Courtney. Help me, Courtney.
Pretzel.
Help me, Courtney.
Well, the mustard
pretzel me, girl.
and the salt.
I try to respond to things, as they come in if they're urgent. So when I got the call last year after that congressional panel that something was seriously wrong, and that, legacy program people, according to some of the whistleblowers, they had been told from high level people in disclosure, people we know, that there had been lethal force issued against the legacy program whistleblower. So when I heard that, it was a shock, right? So you absorb the shock and then you try to go and run it to ground and be responsible as you can with an accusation like that. So I think that that's the way it is with disclosure, honestly, is that we see these high level things that are coming out about threats and assassinations. And, Jake Barber documented very well in his conversations all these tactics that are used against people in the legacy programs. And so he spells it out very clearly: assassination, extortion, entrapment, bribery. He goes into great lengths to describe what these people are dealing with who are trying to come forward. So there's all of that, but we have no substantiated evidence of it. So you hear it, you document it, you track it as much as you can, like with what's happening with, Matthew Sullivan, but you have to keep your eye on the holistic thing. And I think holistically, anything that we get in disclosure right now, even though we're being told that we're not going to get the next drop of videos, the 46 videos for another 30 days, that's amazing. I take that as an amazing thing, considering what some of these people are saying they've been confronted with and struggling with for years, since at least 2023. So I take the good and the bad. I try to respond to things that are the most urgent and most serious and check them out the most dutifully, but we still don't know. So you have to be reconciled with cognitive dissonance. I'm sorry, that's my best answer. You did the best you can. And you take
that is what it is. Yeah. No, don't apologize. It's just, you've been doing this for a long time. And just for the shorter period of time that I've been doing this, it's such a roller coaster that I can see where people just get conditioned to no answer. Expectations cannot keep resetting themselves over and over again. You got that whole disappointment, reset expectation, disappointment, reset expectation. It can only happen so far to where you become apathetic. And I don't want to become that, but.
So Chris, people can be conditioned to do a lot of things that maybe during their upbringing and throughout their lives would seem incongruous with how they were raised. Maybe they're church going, all these kinds of things, and they consider themselves peaceful. But if you took all of us right here, you and Nathan and Boogie and Courtney and Leah and Debs and Bia and myself, and he said, we're going to harbor a secret, and everybody that we know wants to know that secret, and they're talking about it, and it's the subject of writings and books and movies and Twitter and social media and Reddit, and we know this secret, and we're being told you guys are the keepers of the flame. You are the chosen ones. You're the ones who are clear to know. And then if some of us had this tendency to be able to commit violence on others, then we could be ones, and let's say there's another 10 of us, in addition to us, that could be coerced to do intimidation tactics, violence, maybe threatening, to commit what Leah was talking about earlier, administrative terrorism. That's what you're looking at here. It's just the human condition applied to, we have a secret, you want to know, and we're being told that we're the righteous ones. Haven't you seen this in a cult, right? Okay, let me let me shut up now and get Leah in there. Go ahead, man.
Yes. First of all, this is an amazing conversation. And I think it's worth me editorializing just a couple of things to sort of provide some context. The first is that my approach to this subject is not nuts and bolts, and it's also generally not oriented around the interface between individuals and the government and like institutional actors in UFOs. So I bring that up just to say, like, this is one of the areas of ufology that like I like to talk about, but I don't know very much, and as a result, I don't have very strong opinions about pretty much anything that we're talking about. But what I think is really interesting is, like, to me, like, Barber's whole trajectory is really fascinating. And I say that because he starts with this like super materialist perspective and experience where he's working as a military contractor. He's this helicopter pilot. He claims to have been physically working with craft. And like, it doesn't get any more like nuts and bolts than what his experience is, or what he tells about his experience. But then it takes this like hard swing into like what I lovingly will call the woo, right? Where he's talking about this sort of what I would call an emergent experience, right? The super intense, connected experience or style experience. And this is an experience that's fairly perennial across all of human existence, right? Like this is an experience that's recollected in like all of the religious traditions across all cultures, all throughout all of human history. And like what I think is really interesting is that it's not that he abandoned this material perspective for the woo, as much as his material and materialist experience led him to the woo. And I think that's a really important distinction to make. And so Courtney, particularly given like your own interest and exploration of these kinds of experiences, like what does it mean if these hardware conversations or these nuts and bolts conversations and the consciousness or like woo side of the subject, what if they aren't actually two separate conversations? Like what does it actually mean? Or like, what are your thoughts on these being two sides of the same coin rather than being two separate areas of conversation around the UFO subject?
Well, I was in this group called Fight Club after I wrote the Biggs paper in 2021. And that group was mostly nuts and bolts guys, mostly from SCU, very much about the craft. And so I was in there kind of the lonely voice in the wilderness saying, this much more to this, there's a psi aspect and, there's a history of this, and really trying to shout into that group about the psi capability. And at that time, Ross Coulthart, mark my words, was like, there's nothing to that. I'm sorry, I don't believe it.
Really?
And I was like, okay. Yeah.
Man, that feels to me like only watching TV with black and white, right? Like totally missing so like a huge part of things.
The multi-dimensionality of it, I was always kind of like talking about the different aspects. And so to see that conversation change and to see Ross covering Jake Barber and his anomalous experience and how he felt, and to see him connect so deeply with that feminine aspect or that feminine principle, I mean, for me, was like a whole reversal of somebody's opinion on it and covering it. So I've always thought that was there and was more interested in that aspect than the nuts and bolts. But you have to also like holistically accept the all. I think there was so much criticism about Jake Barber when he first came out. Everybody was like, this is going to ruin the field. It's it was like they universally panned it and said, this should not be a story on, any national media outlet. And I thought, no, this is exactly the story, because this contains the multi-dimensional aspect of a contact experience, essentially. Even if we don't know what it was, we still know how it made him feel. So I've been happy to see that progression forward, where it's more acceptable to bring these kind of things up in research and in the media, good or bad. I also think that the most fascinating aspect that I touched on before with Jake Barber is that when people said that they were in a childhood psychic program, Jake Barber was supportive. And that is not a conversation that people have lightly or they bring out or they talk about it. And Jake Barber has been one of the people about the GATE program who's been very supportive. So I've also been happy to see that, even though it's brought a bunch of a whole era of people talking about GATE and SOAR and different programs, I still think it's valid. And I give him the credit for that, because he was one of the first people, besides Deb, who told me about the GATE program long before. You know, he was the one that really brought that to the forefront. So I think it's important.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
important.
and like what I will say, without a full-throated endorsement of his claims, I will say that he was operating under conditions that very much lend themselves to these kinds of emergent experiences, right? He's tired, he's high stress, he's working in
Yeah.
like a physically dissociated space, right? Like he's flying a freaking helicopter, and like all of those
Yes.
situations line up really well to prompt and cause these kinds of experiences as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that anybody who's been on a long drive across the country can absolutely say yes. I have felt
Right.
that feeling of
Oh yeah.
not being able to keep track of where I was or how I get there, and somewhat of a dissociated kind of thing,
There's
automated.
yeah.
So
state of-
yes, I agree.
There's a reason airports are the most common places people experience spiritual emergence, right? Because it's that same kind of crazy dissociation. It's really like people are tired, it's emotionally charged, it's like this very it's like a very weird liminal space, and it's also strictly secular, right? It's like not a religious thing to go to the airport. But yeah, very interesting. Thank you, Courtney.
Nathan has branded the word liminal, so you may owe him a royalty. It's just like
Nathan, do you take Bitcoin? Just
Sure
message your wallet after the show, and
You
I'll
got it.
put a little token in there.
Awesome. Yeah, I quickly, if I just want to add on to what we're talking about, if I may. So, you know, it reminds me to some degree of this, you know, this Christian story, this Paul on the road to Damascus. You know, you've got this, you know, individual who is kind of really persecuting early Christians, and he's on this road, and he has this blinding light experience, and you know, he can't see for a while and comes overcome, and then becomes one of the greatest proponents of the, you know, Christian faith and theology, and it leaves an indelible mark on the Christian theology, because he puts his own spin on what the texts mean. So really interesting, and I want to echo too what we talked about here, that it created an opening for the woo in the conversation in a way that it really arrested everyone. It was like, whoa, okay, wait a minute, we're all of a sudden talking about this in a very public way, and that got a lot of buzz. But we're not talking about that anymore. You know, so it did come out. It created a lot of chatter, but the conversation that's dominating now is very much back on the nuts and bolts side of the equation. From all the folks that are closest to what the documentation, or, you know, make the champions of releasing more classified documentation. I mean, they're very much looking at this from the nuts and bolts, or if they're not from the nuts and bolts, they're looking at it in the case of like Representative Luna from this, you know, sort of more mystical, in a human tradition that it's been a part of us, a part of the human, you know, struggle for a long time. When she cites things like the Book of Enoch, which I think is, you know, interesting and does add some flavor to it, but maybe not necessarily all that helpful either. So yeah, I think it's very curious, right? It's very curious, and I wonder. I'll toss one back to Courtney. You know, I think this would be pretty speculative, and all of us have different leanings in this for this one way or the other. But I get the sense personally, in a way, that there's. The topic is kind of like, it's like being managed like a thermometer. You know, it's sort of like, let's kind of dial the temp up a little bit. Let's dial it back down a little bit. Whether that's intentional or whether that's just a byproduct of the song and dance that's happening, this push and pull between those who are interested in releasing more information and those who are trying to keep more information secret. It could be just a byproduct of that struggle that creates this mediating effect on what actually gets released. And just like a thermostat, sometimes you accidentally, you know, dial it a little bit too high, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is really hot, I'm very uncomfortable, let's dial it back down, and we stop talking about that. And sometimes that's self-censorship. Sometimes we, as the public and consuming the material, we self-censor our own interest because it becomes uncomfortable. So we stop talking about the woo and we lean back on the nuts and bolts because that does feel a little bit more, tangible, something we can feel more comfortable discussing, as opposed to this weird, fuzzy wuzzy space ghost stuff that I think everybody has experiences with but can't quite articulate very well.
Can I chime in? I really just want to point
Please.
out
Go ahead.
the third perspective, and that is my perspective, that the woo is nuts and bolts. I was sort of like shouting out theta brainwave state because I have done research on this previously. When we go into theta brainwave states, people are much more likely to get into deep meditation, like really profound deep meditation. And they also have a lot of other experiences, including like when you're driving, you go into theta and bam, there's the UFO. Okay, so I'm just saying that to me, there is a connection, and I've like talked about this over a long time, between the woo and the nuts and bolts. They're kind of the same thing to me. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
I'd also like to just chime in too, because one of the things that's very difficult for us is to see where we are now and remember how we got here. And like for Nathan, like we are into the kind of the consciousness and spiritual aspect of this, but there's a road to be traveled to get there. It's like you're looking at Pikes Peak, and Bia can tell you how she drove up there, but we don't look at it and then all of a sudden we're just there. So we had to travel some sort of a road to get there. And you've often spoken about on-ramps and pathways. A pathway to getting there could be that nuts and bolts acknowledgement of a UFO craft, and I see it and then I want to know more. It's like people have a Bigfoot encounter. Like they're like, oh, this thing doesn't exist. And then they see one. Next thing you know, they spend the next 6 months of their life studying, and because they're retired, they can be out in the woods literally every weekend, spending 12 hours over 2 days, in a weekend. So I think like we have arrived at a certain place, and maybe even our co-host, Boston Bia, hasn't got there yet, but she may get there through the knowledge that there's an acknowledgement of, yes, there are nuts and bolt crafts visiting us. Okay, the next question she's going to want to know is why, and who are they, and what might they want, and what do they think of us, and what are their intentions, all those kinds of things. So I think it's we have to remember back to when we all started this, and we didn't start out with, hey, I wonder about consciously connecting with this phenomenon. You didn't think that way, to start off with. So anyway, all right, we got to go to Deb spoke. Let's go to Boston Bia and then Boogie, and then we'll come back around.
All right, Deb. So my question is, what do you think with the president coming out, giving more details and more information? What do you think happens to the whistleblowers?
Do you mean Debs or Courtney? Who are you asking?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Courtney. I always get them
Debs?
confused. I'm sorry.
Because
Debs. I'm sorry.
Debs will definitely have an opinion.
Yes, and she can weigh in on it too,
We can
right
throw
after
it
you.
to Debs.
Go ahead, yeah.
No, Courtney, speak, please.
What do I think?
love
I think I saw a fever pitch last year, like I mentioned, about that congressional briefing. There was something about that was alarming, to the whistleblowers. And so I always hear these upticks of stress and discomfort, and it comes when there is, information just feeds through that community about alerts or alarm. There's a small knit community of people that help one another. So there have been different whistleblowers who have said different things. There have been things said like, if the president comes out, then the legacy program whistleblowers will, they'll disappear. They'll be disappeared, So that's one threat that gets put out there, that disclosure isn't going to be good for those individuals because they're the most at risk. So you do hear about that. And you also hear about, Lou said this in the Age of Disclosure, that he got a call, and the call said from a high level person in the White House, you and David Grush better stop what you're doing, because we can essentially legally, take you out. That is what Lou said in the Age of Disclosure. And so, and Colonel John Blitch has said the reason why David Grush and Lou Elizondo are alive is because they developed some kind of technology to stop abductions. Nobody talks about this stuff, but there are little things that you pick up as you monitor the field of disclosure and what happens as we progress more towards a controlled disclosure. So I don't know what will necessarily happen in those communities, but I know it's increased stress, a lot of increased stress about disclosure, when it's going to happen, what's going to be disclosed. And there's a lot of moving and shaking behind the scenes of who's going to disclose what. So that kind of comes with the territory, but those are the kinds of consequences that people worry about when they hear disclosure or the president's going to do it.
What do you worry about, Bia? Tell us what your thoughts are. You're the newest to the topic. What are you thinking about?
Well, I feel like I've already said it, but I want to know what they've been doing all this time since they've known to protect us. That's my main concern is, okay, you're going to confirm there are stronger beings out there and you know about them. And what have you done to protect us? And why now? It just feels like the timing is off. But especially when it's too, I don't know. I don't want to get into conspiracy theories, but it just seems like he's just trying to, make us look this way instead of this way.
And so
there's a counter.
She's asking that
There's
very
a
question.
counter.
Go ahead, please. Yeah.
Okay, there's a counter argument, B, that the reason why that this has been kept secret so long is it is protective, right? There's a reason why the secrecy has lasted as long as it has, and it's for a reason. So there's a counter argument that people make about disclosure and not having disclosure. So I think it depends on what protective means. When David Grush comes out and says something like, "We're not alone," the universe is teeming with life and we can interact with that life and it's here on this planet. I think that that's a humanity changing thing. And so that shouldn't, in my opinion, be kept from the public if that is what the secret is. That seems to be a truth, much bigger truth that goes beyond nation or secrecy. So that's just my opinion.
Do you agree with that, Bia? Do you think it should be public or would you rather not know?
I think I'm torn. I feel for all these whistleblowers and people that have lost their jobs over coming forward to give us this information. I feel like this is a validation for them. On the other flip side, I think it's scary to know what we don't know. So I guess I'm just kind of torn.
Like Natalie Imbruglia, it made a great
Can
song.
Can I ask her a follow-up real quick? Because I love that perspective of somebody
Spanish,
that.
but yes, go ahead.
No. So, I'm trying to figure out how to ask this question. It's like, do you feel like is there anything that will freak you out? Is there, like, for example, the last statement that they keep saying, and they just kind of bury it, right? They're here. Do you, like, they're already here? What does that mean to you, Bia? How do you interpret that? Like those little fish at the bottom of the ocean, or that there's some people that are around you that are not really people? What do you think?
I think that would mean, to me, I don't think they're walking amongst us. I think they're somewhere else, but we just know where they are. That would be how I would take it.
I mean, in the last 7 days, just to let you guys know, one of our colleagues named Wes Germer of Sasquatch Chronicles interviewed somebody who was in the woods and saw a being who, he was wearing some sort of a blue jumpsuit. He definitely, most certainly looked 100% human, but he leapt on top of a big boulder, such that it would be impossible the size of the boulder for a human to jump up there. Kind of think like Bionic Man type stuff or superhero type stuff. And that is the second of two. I'm trying to remember the first that I've heard in the last week after us being told that they're definitely hybrid humans that are walking among us. That's what that sounds like to me. So yeah, I mean, I think they're already here. I'm not going to put that as a discussion topic because I don't want to derail what J-Boogie might want to talk about, but I can introduce that when it's my turn.
No worries.
Go ahead, Boogie. What have you got, sir?
I don't think that you're going to get too much that. Let's see, how can I say that? I don't think you're going to get the all the information that you think you're going to get. I think this is going to be a very soft disclosure because, first of all, it's going to be in the name of national security. And also there are NDAs probably in effect. So I don't think you're going to get to, people are getting their hopes up. You know, look at what they put out in the first drop, a bunch of, kind of black and white grainy military videos. And you're like, what is that? You know, a couple of them are pretty compelling. The Star one, the Star one's really compelling. I do believe there's a spiritual aspect to UAPs because back in the day here in Vegas, there was a guy named Yahweh Ben Yahweh. And he would stand there and call up to the sky and make UAPs appear. And the news so much, I mean, they took him so serious. The news came out and said, okay, let's see you make UAPs appear. So they took him over to Sunset Park, and with the camera crew and everything, he looked up to the sky, said a prayer, and bam, there they were. And even the news guy was like, they're really there. He was like, and you know how news people are, they're very skeptical, like the local on the street news media guy, he was even taken aback by this thing. I think that in the helicopter, he had a spiritual, it affected him spiritually because it wanted to. That's probably how that particular craft works. We don't know. Let's be honest here. We don't know where they come from. There are certain people that probably do. We don't know where they come from. We don't know much about these things. If they're interacting with us spiritually, something got to him and he felt it in that helicopter. And there was a reason why that event took place, it seems like. So I do believe there's a spiritual component to this, the woo, and there are also nuts and bolts as far as I guess human hybrids or aliens among us. I think they put everything in our face. They do it through, TV programming. They do it through movies. It's all kind of predictive programming, and they've put it out there. I do believe, look what Rowdy Roddy Piper said. He came right out and said, that movie was a documentary. They Live was a documentary. And so they know something. There are people, especially celebrities and, elitists. They are privy to a lot of information. There are a lot of behind the scenes things that, they're going to maybe someone they know say, hey, come here, I got a little secret while they're at a party, some big exclusive, mansion party. Somebody's taking them into the room going, here, check out these photos, check this out, and there's been a lot of stories from celebrities that have come out and said they've seen shapeshifters. Smashing Pumpkins guy, Billy Corgan,
lead singer,
said he had an experience 2 times with what he believed was a shapeshifter, and it turned into what he believed was a reptile type being. So I don't know. Look at and then there's the underground ones with Phil Schneider talking about running into those guys and underground. So there's some type of, like with the Land of the Lost. Remember that TV show? And they had the slee stack.
Yeah.
Okay. They're probably putting it, they're out there. Hey man, this is really what's there, but it's meant to be funny to you or comical or entertaining. It's not meant to be taken seriously, when in all reality, it probably is meant to them. It's serious. To you, it's just entertainment. They're putting it out there, I believe, and letting you know. And I think all of this leads up to some type of, their planned event, whether it's Project Bluebeam or, you know, maybe they know somebody's coming, you know, and but I don't think we're going to get the information that people are really expecting to get, you know, but you know, we'll see. I don't know. I'm not, you know, psychic, but anyways, I just wanted to say that. I don't know if I really have a question. I just thought, you know, I'd bring that out there.
Well, this is one of the things, this is what I love most about Cab, is that you get a whole group of people on the screen, and you don't get everybody in lockstep with all the same opinions and all the same perspectives. You get a variety of different perspectives, all of which are equally important. And I appreciate you adding to that tonight, Boogie, being a new friend of Cab.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You know, I had such a pleasure every time that I'm either on your spaces or when you've been on Cab and we're playing rock music videos for 2 hours.
Love it. Love it.
And getting copyright strikes. What do you,
I was wondering,
how much do you want to know about what's out there?
I want to know everything. I mean, I'm just naturally curious. You know, I have a I'm just naturally curious about everything, you know, and the more I feel like we're here to learn, you know, and I'm a seeker. I don't know if that's, you know, not everybody is, but I am, you know, and I want to know everything. Tell me the truth. The truth. That's what I want to know. And so I'm open to it all.
That's why you like Cab, I guess.
Love it.
Nathan, anything about Slee Stacks? I'm just kidding. Or Chaka.
Love Chaka. Come on. Chaka was the best. Man, when he wasn't on, you'd be like pissed, man. I'm like, where's Chaka? God dang.
Leah's like, what are these guys talking about?
They had the three.
This is all these references are just flying right
exactly. The crystals are
Go ahead, Nathan, while I bring up Land of the Lost JPEG so that Leah can see it.
No, it's great. It is a good conversation, and I think that I agree, Deb, with your point earlier that this distinction between the nuts and bolts and the woo is largely artificial, and I think we are realizing that there's a lot of thought that's gone into that. I think in the last several years, not just in the UFO study area, but in many other areas as well. Like we're bumping up against the bounds of what our materialistic worldview can do for us, and we're still having to wrestle with the parts that we thought we didn't need anymore. So when we're really doing that wrestling and working to understand it earnestly, I think we're coming to this conclusion that we cannot discard this aspect of what it means to be human, this experience, this experiential element that is so subjective and dynamic and worth really celebrating. And I think that that's important as we take this into, you know, different conversation groups, that you're going to hear all kinds of different stories. You're going to hear all kinds of different very, very powerful, revelatory moments that people share from some of their most private, most intimate experiences, and to come into those experiences and sort of say, well, you know, that's not true, or that's, you know, I believe something else, and you're wrong. Like, you know, I think that's the wrong attitude to take. It's worth celebrating that we have such a wide diversity of experience here, and that no one has the corner on the truth. Unfortunately, I think that if anything, history has shown us, it's that every generation has a certain degree of certainty, and then the future generations look back on those generations and say, "What fools!"
One of the most trenchant things one of my deeply skeptical friends once said to me is that the thing about science is almost always wrong, right? Mm-hmm. Like every scientific idea at one point or another, in the course of its proposal, like our ideas about science evolve, but most of what has been proposed as science is not correct, whether it's like the humorous theory of how medicine works or the miasma theory. And like, you know, I mean, we can get all what's his name, Thomas Kuhn, about this if we want, but like basically, like our ideas are constantly evolving, and most of what is believed at any given time is ultimately incorrect.
Mm-hmm. Right. And they have a utility though, right? So I think that is interesting. Like we traffic in a lot of useful fictions that have this high level of utility. Some of them, have given us incredible technologies and medicines and all kinds of things, but there's certain aspects to all of that that are very fictitious. But we just sort of go along together. We work on this together. It's this collective hallucination that somehow works out.
And Matt, our friend from Bigfoot Crossroads, you guys have been on air. I think at least for sure, I think Courtney and Leah have been on air with Matt, and definitely Bia has as well. He had on scientist Steve, and he's like, can we even know? Do we have a framework to understand? Maybe we don't. I used to always think, oh yeah, sure, we can understand. But that's just me being human. I think I can understand anything. Maybe I can't. So I think that's, part and parcel of studying this topic and being comfortable in the unknown, that we don't know everything. And Julie, by the way, we are going to get to your question, Julie, because it's very important that Courtney expound upon that point. But yes, science doesn't, like we say, known physics. We use when we talk about nuts and bolts craft and how that they move through our visual space, because they're not flying per se, but they're, as a minimum, they're moving through our right. physical space where our eyes can perceive them. And we say, oh, it defies the laws of physics. Well, how do we know that we understand the bounds of physics? It's just what we know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you know what I was reading about the other day? And this is like, I've been obsessively thinking about this, DJ, and you're sort of the limitations of how we perceive and experience phenomena around us is the way our cones work in our eyes when you see color. They work in such a way that you can't see greenish red or like reddish green. Like that's not a color that you can see just based on how the cones in the human eye work. But there is a way to briefly see this kind of color, and you do it by basically exhausting the cones in your eye and then looking to another color. And I was reading about basically how to do this. And so for a transient couple seconds, you can see this color that otherwise is blocked out because your cones can't process the two wavelengths simultaneously. Which is all a very long way of saying that there's all sorts of stuff happening around us all the time that we cannot perceive and do not perceive. Another classic example is if you know anyone who's had cataract surgery or had a lensectomy, a lot of them will talk about how everything looks very purple. And that's because you start seeing more ultraviolet after you have your natural lenses taken out. So shades of purple look much more intense. And if you're walking around outside, like just, looking at flowers in your garden, everything has kind of like this crazy purple or violet hue around them. If anyone's interested in this in like a more deep dive sense, Donald Hoffman's The Case Against Reality is an extremely, extremely good book.
Oh, the professor from UC Irvine, very famous. Nathan, you and Darren have done a lot of work on Donald Hoffman's books. So boy, this is fascinating. We only have about 10 minutes left, so I want to make sure we get everybody in there. Akashi, well, first of all, let's get Julie's question and let's see if Courtney can tackle this one, because it caught me off guard as well, because I wasn't aware of it. What is this technology that you say that has been where they can stop abductions? It's been developed.
I asked Linda Thompson about it because I heard the interview on Colonel Blitch was on News Nation with Ross Coulthart. He did his own interviews along with Jake Barber and all the Green Berets and that whole team. And in that interview, he said that. That's where I documented it. So you can go back and find it in that interview, unless it's been changed. But I definitely heard it, and then I contacted him through LinkedIn. And Linda told me it was a cab that they developed. So she would be the one to check a cab, some kind of cab.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
CAP.
Yeah.
Yeah, I checked. I followed up with Linda on that. So she might have more information, Julie.
Could be the one I've ordered on Amazon. I've ordered a skull cap that maybe is prevented me from being abducted. I figure I should show this
It
to.
kind of it goes into all those cliches, you know, about the tinfoil cap and all that. So I don't want to like, you know, feed into that, but that's how I followed up on it, and that's what Linda said. So, and that's
There
what
you
the
go.
interview was where he said it.
Okay, we good.
Yay!
There's
Love
Land of
the
the Lost.
show.
Yeah.
Where are the slee stacks? Come on.
They're so cute.
There's Chaka. So,
Of
yeah,
the
anyway.
Chaka.
lost.
I need a Chaka t-shirt. The Chaka.
Come on, you got to know when they didn't play it on Saturday morning, you'd be all upset. You know, over
And
here
these-
playing HR Puff and stuff.
Can you see the slee stacks there? That's the they didn't look quite as menacing in the original series, but that's what the slee stacks. So that was the childhood cartoon we grew up with, Leah.
Loved it. Yeah.
It's so good.
You never know what kind of ridiculousness you're going to get here on Cab. One more time, just want to say we are fundraising to bring Carolyn Clapper on to do a reading of John O'Keefe. She not very famously found Teresa Jones, the mother of three, who was missing 3 days in Louisiana. Tragically, a late night phone call with her daughter, she was able to connect with Teresa herself and direct them right to the location where, unfortunately, Teresa was found dead in a creek. But law enforcement hadn't been able to find her, and we believe she can communicate with Officer John O'Keefe, Karen Reed's boyfriend, who was killed on the night of 29 January 2022, and we believe that she can speak. She has proven to me that she can communicate with John, and that may be the only way we ever get answers. So if you'd like to donate, PayPal at Calling All Beings. I don't care if it's $2, $3. We're already over $400, so we're close. And on Cash App, we are $ Calling All Beings. Thank you very much. Akashi, Chris.
Thank you so much, you guys. This has been a fascinating conversation. I just really, really enjoyed this. But you know, and I just some closing thoughts from my side is I find the mental part of this the most fascinating. It's the scariest, but it's the most fascinating. And that's probably the one that people are going to have the toughest time with. We've seen them slam telepathy tapes, etc. So, I mean, that's just something that they're going to have a really hard time with. But when I mean, on a personal level, when I think about, I have these anchor cases that kind of like, they anchor me to the subject, right? Dorothy Isett case, you know, this lovely grandmother was called to film. She knew when to film. And she filmed things at rates per second that she couldn't have. But she knew when they were coming. She knew when to go out. Nobody believed her, and she did it. And those are the cases that's like that mind connection. She knew when they were calling. They were calling her. They didn't have to call on phone. And just because we can't wrap our heads around it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's like these are the cases. it happens. It's scary because you want to be a sovereign being and you want to make sure people are not in your head. But you know, this is probably the part that people are going to struggle with the most. But anyway, thank you so much. This is Courtney. Everybody here, everybody brought great perspectives from all kinds of angles. And that's, like you said, DJ, that's what makes this golden, because it's just so diverse. So thank you.
This is what
That's all I
makes
have to
us
say.
proud of Cab. It's not money we've made. It's not any of that stuff. It's conversations we had that we go to bed feeling like, wow, that was awesome. I mean, that's really that's why we started this channel, is because we wanted to find interesting people to talk to, and we found you. So, and we don't even need a guest.
John.
Like we don't need to bring on a guest to do this. That's what's amazing about it. So thank you. Leah Prime.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to echo a lot of what Akashi Chris just said in terms of the quality of conversation and the different perspectives and experiences that people bring to the subject. I think it's always super valuable. Courtney, I also very much respect your approach to this subject and how you're thinking about this, and how detailed and thoughtful you've been in all of your responses here. So yeah, as usual, excellent conversation, and deeply appreciate everybody taking time.
That's just a pre-applause. We're going to give you another one, Courtney, but just for what Primetime said. Thank you so much, Leah. Debs.
I would like to know if you have explored the octopus murderer's path on Jake Barber's employment, but we do not really have time to go into that, but it might be a thought for later. And I wanted to also add, based on conversations I've had with anthropologists, I am not exactly the same human as anyone else here. And we must remember that we are, I am considerably Neanderthal, actually, based on my DNA. And I just want to remind you guys, what is human is not always that cut and dry.
I love it. I love it. This is why Deb wants to babysit Bigfoot. It's the Neanderthal connection, clearly. Meanwhile, like Bia wants Bigfoot no closer than the tree line in her New Hampshire property. All right. Thank you, Debs. Boston Bia.
Courtney, thank you for a great conversation. Thank you, everyone here on the panel. I feel like a little sponge. I've absorbed a lot of information and continue to do so. And yeah, we'll just always keep learning and moving forward. Thank you, everyone.
And with a cold, she showed up. She played hurt. We had her on the injury list, and she still showed up. So God bless you, J-Boogie.
Oh yeah, great conversation, a lot of fun. I love UFO talk, and encrypted stuff. So it's fun just being here, hanging out with you, and I'm very grateful that you had us on, and you liked what you heard in our spaces and brought us on and introduced us to all these great people. And I'm really learning a lot. I really am, and I'm really having a lot of fun with all of this. So I just like to say thank you, and thank you to everybody for letting me into your space.
Thank you, J-Boogie. It is a pleasure being your friend and collaborating with you. And we miss your co-host, Amy. And I'm here to tell you, if you Google the Hat Man, PBS did a piece on the Hat Man paranormal phenomenon.
Oh, yeah.
It's scary. And I'm going to tell you that Amy, in her aunt's house, with her aunt present the second time and her brother present, had a Hat Man experience that was shocking, to say the least. I was like, it's very scary what she endured. That's all I like.
Yeah, scary story.
It's sitting on the bed, and the bed kind of depressing, but she kicked at it and her foot went right through it, and very scary. So we'll have to have Amy on so she can tell you guys the Hat Man. It's kind of like you guys missed. We had the host of Tinfoil Tales on, Brandon, and Brandon has a paranormal experience driving home from work in Indiana with a coworker, where I guess it was like a headless figure that the car in front of him swerved out of the way. He swerved. What was it, Bia, that was laying in the road? Oh, it was like a dog, like a big black dog, but then it stood up on two legs.
And then there was a mouse.
That was after. Then there was he swerved out of the way for something that had all the way up to a torso, but no head. And then this guy stops the car. Like, for me, I'm like seeing how fast can this vehicle go right now in the other direction. Brandon and his friend, his coworker, stop, and they get out and they look, and all of a sudden they see a dog laying across the road. And like, well, we would have run it over because like it's laying across the road, and it was big. It stood up on two legs and then walked away. So anyway.
But look at the different perspectives. One was amazed by it and embraced it, and then the other one didn't want to even talk about it or even acknowledge that it did happen.
Afterward.
So it
he
just
didn't
goes
want to talk about it.
Right. So it just goes to show you how they each took a different experience from it.
Oh yeah, Brandon started a show, and his coworker said, "I don't ever want you to mention it again." Anyway, all right. I've really diverged, but yeah, it made me think of Amy and Paranormal, and it's J-Boogie's co-host Amy. Nathan, closing comments.
Yeah, it's an honor to have all of you guys here, and I think one thing our show demonstrates, I hope that it demonstrates, is that just by having good faith conversation, you can have incredible experiences, and you don't be so close-minded. And I think we have to all fight this tendency that we've probably all been raised with to reach some sort of certainty when we talk with people. Like, we have to get to some sort of place where we've made a decision. Why don't we just suspend that for a while and enjoy the time we have with each other around the campfire and see what we get out of it. So thank you guys for joining, and it's been a great chat.
Yeah, I think I've said this to all of you individually, but I'll say it as a group and to the audience, and to our mods that are on there. It's such a blessing to have all of you to collaborate with us and to create these conversations. And like Nathan said, as you go further along in the topic, you become less certain, not more certain. That's what's interesting, and that's a good thing. So you can laugh, Leah. I was trying to be funny. I'm just kidding. Oh wait, I got my.
No, I think I'm a big fan of ambiguity.
I can do my own. Here we go.
There you go.
All right. I love you guys. Thank you so much. We will see you again on the 23rd, if not sooner. I'm going to connect with John Majorowski, the host of the author of Contact and Control, the Freemason, the Rosicrucian, a good friend of James Iandoli and a good friend of us. He's been on, I mean, we haven't talked to him in probably 4 years. So this is going to be, it's going to be brilliant. So we're expecting Saturday, the 23rd to have on John. So with that, on behalf of all the cabbies, this is DJ saying peace out. One love.
We'll see you.
See you down the road.